What if effort isn't the only path forward? Most of us have been taught that if we want something, we need to work harder, push harder, do more, figure it out, fix it. But what happens when all the striving starts to create more tension than freedom? What if there is another way of moving through life? A way that feels less like forcing and more like flowing? Welcome back to Who Are You Now? Over the last few episodes, we've been exploring what happens when survival is no longer driving your life. We have talked about the nervous system safety, urgency, stillness, and most recently, the wisdom of less. The realization that growth doesn't always come from adding more, but sometimes from removing what no longer serves us. And as I was reflecting on this idea, a question naturally emerged. What happens when we stop forcing life? What happens when we stop trying to control every outcome, solve every problem, and constantly push ourselves toward the next thing? Today's conversation explores that question through the lens of an ancient practice that has been helping people cultivate presence, flow, and connection for thousands of years. My guest today is Craig Cooke, a Qigong practitioner and teacher who helps people reconnect with their bodies, their breath, and their own internal energy. Together, we'll explore what Qigong actually is, why so many of us struggle to slow down, and the difference between forcing flow and what becomes possible when we learn to receive rather than constantly strive. Whether you're completely new to Qigong or you've been searching for a deeper sense of peace, presence, and connection in your life, I think you'll find something valuable in today's conversation. Let's get started. Hi, Craig.
Chrissie, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, me too. You actually hold such a special place in history for the podcast because you were my very first guest of season 1.
And that's incredible.
We were talking about it earlier before we started recording, and it doesn't seem like that long ago.
No, it doesn't. And when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, wow. It just seems like 6 months ago. But
I know,
yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
And so when we first spoke, we explored your transition from a successful businessman into the world of Qigong and healing work. And so today, I'd like to build on that conversation and explore some of the wisdom that you've gained along the way.
Okay.
So for people who haven't heard you speak, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what first drew you to this path?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I was in the business world. So most of my career has been in digital marketing. 26 years of running a digital marketing agency. So, did all that struggle and striving and all those things that you were talking about in the intro, right? It's an interesting journey, and I'm very blessed and very appreciative of that journey. And along the way, it was because of where I found myself in that journey, how I ended up getting into this practice of Qigong. And I really attribute it to enabling me to navigate all the chaos of running a fast-growing, successful company and to reach higher levels of success and to also get into a much better state of health. And that's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all the 4 bodies that you talk about.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. For someone who's never heard of it, what is Qigong?
So Qigong is a way of working with energy. It literally means life force, energy, skill. So Qi, life force, energy, and then Gong is a skill. And the inference is a high level of skill. So the skill of working with life force, energy. And it originated in the Chinese culture thousands and thousands of years ago. It actually originated as a shamanic practice. And then over time, which I really admire about the Chinese culture, how they took such a systematic approach to working with energy and experimenting and documenting these experiments, and then organizing, classifying, systematizing, and creating different patterns of working with energy and protocols to follow to address very specific conditions to have a desired outcome. It's really amazing what that culture has accomplished through that whole body of work. The three traditional branches of Qigong are martial, medical, and spiritual.
And so what form do you practice?
All three,
All
actually.
three?
Yes.
Do they eventually start to flow together depending on who comes in? Even though there's three categories, does it become Qigong as a whole after a while?
Yes, it does all come together. So with these various conditions that all of us could have that manifest in the physical body, many times, not all the time, because there's all kinds of environmental toxins out there that we're bombarded with and can cause certain conditions, right? But with a lot of diseases too, there's some sort of emotional root to it. So it's all connected and it's really something.
So what do you think people are surprised to discover once they start practicing?
So I've been teaching for the past year and a half, and one pattern that I've seen is they're surprised on how they're able to manage their stress load so much better. They're like, wow, there's still these moments, but yet I'm just not as impacted. I'm able to manage through it much, much better.
The reactions are different or
Yes.
not at all. I would say
Yes.
capacity for maintaining your nervous system baseline actually increases.
Yes,
Doesn't it?
100%. So that's been really fulfilling to see that.
How has your understanding of Qigong evolved over the most recent years, diving into practice and teaching?
It's an interesting question because it's really a never-ending journey and just a constant process of learning and evolving. Compared to, say, when I first started, I was going through my own big transformation. What I'd say is very interesting now is to really see how it's a repeatable process. For example, when I started first studying medical Qigong under my first instructor, Russ Anderson, I was going through my transformation and having all these variety of sensations, Qi manifestations, and just this whole experience, which was repeating what he had went through as he was developing. And now I'm starting to see my students are starting to tell me their experiences, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is, because they're like, what's going on? Oh, it's this. So it's great because he experienced it, I experienced it, now they're experiencing it.
So are you finding that there's sort of phases that people will experience as they're evolving along their own journeys, and they're very similar in the phases?
Yes, there's phases, and yes, they're similar. So they're cool. So there's going to be certain things that are going to overlap and be like an exact repeat. But then, because everyone's unique and different, there may be an experience that, say, one of my students has that I haven't had. Actually, that just happened with one of my students. She just relayed something to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And my teacher, Russ, had experienced that, but I have not, because I'm just wired different, right?
Well, maybe that's not part of your internal journey. You don't need that thing in order to get to the next part for you.
Yes, I've gotten to the next part through other means.
Yeah.
Now, maybe this one component will manifest sooner or later or eventually, because everyone is kind of like pre-wired. They have an affinity to certain gifts per se, and they will develop naturally quicker than others. But so there'll be overlap, but everyone's going to have their own little unique experience.
Well, and that's just like any practitioner. I would say we all do it a little differently, even though we might have been trained exactly the same way.
Yes.
Because I always tell people, they say, what are you doing right now? And I say, well, it's Chrissie therapy.
Yeah.
But it's a combination of all of the classes, all of the things I've learned over 32 years, and it's all stored in my hands. So you get whatever's in there, and it'll come out however it's going to come out. I believe it resonates. It comes out how you need it, not how I'm performing it. Right. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Makes perfect sense.
So I want to move into the connection of Qigong and what a valuable asset it can be in the dissociation that we're all experiencing today in modern life. I feel like there's like this disconnection because everything is moving so fast. I mean, you were part of that growth of the digital world. Why do you think so many people feel so disconnected from themselves today?
A big part of that is all these devices that we're preoccupied with. So even though we're more connected, the paradox is that we're more disconnected as well, especially just from each other, even though we're connected via these devices. There's just this disconnection. And also with the flood of media, how more complex life has become, the speed, the acceleration of technological change, which creates more complexities to our life, even though it's supposed to simplify life. In some ways, yes, but then it makes it more complicated at the same time. Yeah, it's just there's so much stimuli, has so many distractions.
It's hard to stay focused.
It's hard to stay focused.
And with that, also, it's hard to find meaning because you don't sit with anything long enough to let it talk to you.
Yes.
Right. I feel like the disconnect is we're not talking. So I can talk to you through my phone. I can send an email. I can send you a video that I saw. But hopefully we're starting to realize that it's the human connection that actually creates connection, not the information.
Absolutely. It's just like coming here today. I was like, oh, cool. In person podcast. It's special. It's neat. I mean, the technology is amazing. How you can get on Zoom and do all that. It's cool. But to echo your sentiment, that in person is special.
What do you see in students when they first come into you?
I would say they're definitely seeking something in their lives, whether it's more connection, like we're talking about. One aspect of connection is also just that spiritual walk, that connection to source, the divine, whatever you want to call it. So being able to lean into that, which the Qigong practice definitely does that for people. Also, they can just be in a state of just poor emotional mental health. And that's kind of how I fell into it, actually. And they're looking for something to help calm them down, balance them out. And then others, they're just wanting to explore what this modality has to offer because they've been kind of dabbling in other modalities and they've heard of this, perhaps.
The mental health aspect of it. Why do you think modern culture encourages us to live primarily in our heads?
Because that's where we're at, right? Through all these distractions and devices and programming, media, all these things, I believe is control, right? The more people can live in a state of fear or a state of stress, a state of being distracted from what's truly important. And this being in survival mode, it keeps our nervous system in this fight or flight state continuously, which we're not designed to be in it continuously. So where a practice like Qigong is fantastic to really activate that parasympathetic response so that you can be calm and balanced like we're supposed to be, and then only kick in that sympathetic
when
aspect.
There is real danger. We live in this constant, you're in danger of something. And so people are always scanning and looking for more information versus what you just said, the parasympathetic of being in flow.
Yes.
So can you tell me what being in flow means to you?
Your entire being is completely engaged in some sort of activity. And you're so engaged that you don't even have a sense of time. You're just completely in the moment, doing whatever the activity is. Normally, there's some sort of joy that accompanies that because usually there's some sort of passion with the activity. And it's where things start to happen naturally. There's no forcing anything. And so there's joy, it's effortless, it's not forced, and just time displacement, I would say. And the work that you're doing, that activity, is awesome. Like you do it really, really well.
I call that the zone.
Yes, like the zone. I like to call it a rhythm state since my company was named Rhythm.
Of course, yes. I like that. For those of you that were athletes or are athletes, you get into this space where it's just sort of you and the ball. Yes. Everything is still going on, your teammates, whatnot.
Yes.
But yes, it's like having that perfect game. Everything becomes effortless.
Yes.
Everything is heightened.
Yes.
And it's the heightened in the joy sense, in the present sense, and it feeds to the other people around you sense.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, what's really interesting is that time displacement aspect because 2 hours could go by and it may seem only like 10 minutes. And it's like, wow, 2 hours has gone by.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because you're just that engaged.
Okay, so what's the difference between that and how does someone know when they're forcing something?
Usually, when someone's forcing something, there's friction.
Friction.
Yeah, there's some sort of friction. There's bumps, there's obstacles, frustration accompanies that. Not getting to the point where you want to get to, or whatever the activity is, it just doesn't seem to be working. And there's some actual struggle. When things are forced, all those different elements start to come into play.
Would you say that there's also a form of resistance that occurs?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely resistance. And that could be whether it's with other people or the environment itself just naturally brings some resistance to you because they're trying to force. Yeah.
Can someone still be disciplined and productive while living in the flow?
Yes, because the way I like to define discipline, which I defined in my book, Business Kung Fu, the 3 layers. One is showing up, and you have to show up to be in flow, right? And two, being productive. In order to be in flow, you have to be busy and engaged in an activity, right? When you're in flow, you're just naturally productive. And then that third layer is where you're effective, where you're actually bringing value, whether to yourself or to other people, right? And a flow state just naturally enhances that probability of value creation. Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand, actually. You need to show up, be productive, be effective, those 3 layers of discipline. Being in flow just naturally accompanies that.
So, would you say that if you can learn to work, be disciplined, the productivity naturally comes while you're in flow?
Yes.
And maybe even at a higher rate than when you're enforcing?
Yes. And another thing I'd like to mention too, and this is where my 5 element model comes in, again, from my book, where the element of passion fuels discipline. What I mentioned before about the flow state or rhythm state, there's an aspect of joy that comes into play when you're in these states, right? When you're living your passion, you're living in your joy. And that fuels the discipline. Because a lot of people, when they think discipline, oh, I got to force. But if you're utilizing the element of passion, it naturally fuels discipline. So the work doesn't feel like work.
Right. That's the key.
That's the key. And then everything just starts falling into place. So it really goes hand in hand with the passion, fueling the discipline, which then helps enable that flow state. And things aren't forced, they just happen naturally.
What are signs that people are trying to control outcomes?
Yeah, and that's a challenge because of the demands in our society, whether it's in the workplace with authority figures, bosses, and so forth, or clients, and then also at home with family and friends, all these expectations and demands. And a lot of times, all of us can get caught up in times of wanting to control a situation, control an outcome. And that makes us highly reactive rather than responsive.
Say that again.
So we end up becoming highly reactive rather than responsive when we're really trying to control a situation or an outcome. And that's not necessarily the best way to handle things, because when you're reactive, you're being more irrational, just
Pure emotion.
Not taking a pause and thinking through, oh, what's the best approach here? How do I circle around this obstacle or this situation? When you respond, you're regulating your nervous system so that you can be calm and be able to think clearly so that solutions can come to the table. And part of that's also being open to divine guidance and being guided through the scenario, the situation. As soon as you're in control mode, you're reactive, you're cut off, and a lot of times you can make this situation worse or the challenge even harder to get through.
I think that when we go into reaction, not only do you cut yourself off from source, but you go directly into ego.
Yes, that's right.
That emotion that comes up is from ego. It becomes about me versus what's the best solution? What's the best way to get to the solution?
Yes.
So when you're responding and you take a pause, a breath, absorb it, and then your other senses can kick in, whether it's your intuition, your natural brain flow, because it's trying to solve a problem now, not you made me feel this way.
Yes, 100%. And the aspect of control and ego, they definitely go hand in hand.
Right?
Yeah. It's a great point that you brought that up.
What do you think the ego is?
So the ego is just other aspect of your being. You can call it your acquired personality.
I like that.
It's an energy, and separate from who you truly are, because who you truly are is your eternal soul that occupies this vehicle, but is part of, say, your higher self that comes down and occupies the body. But this ego is just something that develops as you, from the point of conception to when you're born, to as you age from baby to toddler to all of the adulthood. And it's very self-centered, very survival oriented, and very hungry to feed itself.
I agree. I also think that ego, in layman's terms, I call it the mean girl, or the negative aspect. It will always take you negative because it's defensive and it's survival mode.
Yes.
And so it's always going to take your brain down the negative what ifs.
Yes.
Or what am I going to get out of it? Right?
Exactly.
How's that affecting me?
Yeah.
It's false because it's not your true self.
That's right.
Many people know how to work hard. You know how to work hard. I know how to work hard. Why is receiving often so difficult?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's one, the work hard mentality. It's admirable. It's very programmed into, if you want to be successful, you got to work hard, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of programming, reinforcement, cultural reinforcement with that. So that's one challenge. Two, just not really understanding the other way, the other path. And I think, interestingly enough, through my journey, and you've experienced it too, doing all the things and striving and working hard, you kind of need to go through that experience, I feel, so that you can then learn that it doesn't have to be that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would have gotten to the place I am with how I feel about life had I not made my life really hard for a long time.
Right. I agree.
Because you don't know any better.
That's right. You don't know any better.
And then it's like this aha, we're like, wait, I could do it like this.
Yeah.
And then it's the journey of learning how to do it like that.
Yes.
Because we're so programmed into just go get it.
Yes.
That was probably up until really recently. That was my motto, is you go get it. And I've caught myself not saying those type of things to my children. And to say, hey, go have experiences. Yeah. Go find things that you really enjoy. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to have to maybe for a few years do some things on the side that might not necessarily be your passion in order to establish yourself in the world, but always know you want to strive that way.
Yeah, and that's all okay because it's all part of character building and part of the experience and lessons to learn and so forth, so that when you're actually able to live your passion, you can appreciate that time all the more.
Yes, I think that it does. It allows us to appreciate more. If it were always there, we wouldn't. Well, I don't know. If it were always there, then wouldn't we have just lived a much easier life? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't know. That's not how I
know, right?
Grew up. So.
Exactly. Same. And there is something too where there's a saying, oh, if it's easy, everyone would be doing it, right? And then also, if it was just so easy, there just wouldn't be that appreciation.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You have to go through the hard in order to be able to appreciate when things get a little easier.
Yeah.
And anyway, in your brain, in your body, your soul, all of it.
And then once we have that level of appreciation, like, oh, wow, I'm just become so grateful for all of these different experiences. And you start practicing the act of gratitude, and all of a sudden things start to come your way and you're receiving because now you're just in a different state as opposed to that working hard is the only way. And not having any gratitude. It's just interesting getting back to like, you have to kind of go through it and then understand, okay.
Well, so let me ask you this then. What does receiving mean?
Receiving, I believe, is being open and accepting that it's okay for you to receive things from people, from the divine, through various experiences that you're worthy in. It's acceptable.
I like that, acceptable.
Yeah.
And that being acceptable can come from very many different places,
Yes.
whether it was cultural, conditioned, because you're supposed to be the giver.
Yes.
That happens a lot culturally. You know, I'm Filipino. We're supposed to be selfless. It happens a lot in religion.
Yes.
Which was probably a form of control, to be honest with you, but that you're not supposed to receive.
Yeah, it's all part of the cultural trance, whether it's a specific ethnic culture or religion or political ideologies. All these different things are these aspects of cultural trances that have us think a certain way, behave in a certain way. And it's so challenging for people to just be able to receive, for example, a really simple exercise that I've gone through and people can go through is just being able to receive a compliment. Because a lot of times they'll see it like, oh, you have a nice shirt. Oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, your shirt. I like your shirt too. Rather than just saying, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And just stop.
And that's it.
And that's it. You just accept and you receive without the need to having to reciprocate. Like, it's okay, it's acceptable to receive. So if you can take a compliment and just receive it, then that's a neat way to practice that.
If it's very hard for you to take a compliment, I always look at it this way. It might have taken that person a lot of energy and thought to actually give you that compliment. So when you can't receive it, when you brush it off, or when you immediately reciprocate, it takes away the energy of that person presenting something to you with love and grace.
100%. That's right.
And so if you can't do it for yourself, allow that other person to give.
Yes. You nailed it.
Right? So I always keep that in mind because I don't take compliments very well. And I had someone point that out to me when I was about 25. It was a patient. She said, you know, you're very extroverted. You're very easy with your words. So to you, giving someone a compliment, it's not hard. But she said, for someone like me, that took a lot. And so if you poo-poo it, if you brush it off, it doesn't allow that person to have that gift of giving, because we all love to give.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. So you can't do it for yourself. At least allow someone else to give.
Yes, because there's value. And maybe it is hard for them, actually, right? And then you're going to discount that by automatically reciprocating, and it detracts from the attention on that moment.
And on them being able to do something for someone else.
Yes.
And so even just to keep that in mind, if you're not a good receiver. So how does Qigong help people be more receptive?
It's creating awareness to the three bodies, the physical body, the energy body, the spirit body. And through that, you develop a greater sense of perceptual awareness. The more open you are, it's easier for the practitioner to do the work, as opposed to people that are very guarded and armored up and closed off and very protective of themselves. Once they start to have certain experiences, say on the table, where they're sensing energy, they might start to see things, colors or images, and it becomes this big experience. The more they open up to it and are able to receive, it can aid in that way. And then if someone's doing just the personal cultivation practice, working with energy, it develops just over time that perceptual awareness of the three bodies. That just starts to happen naturally.
Do you find that the receptivity, not only in cultivating the practice or being on the table, happens, but also receptivity in life?
Yes.
They're not so armored up.
They're not so armored up, and they're working on their energetic anatomy. They're raising their vibrational frequency. They're rising it so it's at a higher elevated state more consistently. And with that, like attracts like, so all of a sudden other things start to come that are more positive as opposed to negative, more positive things that keep coming. That's where it's kind of just this natural thing that very subtle, and that people just over time could just start to be more receptive naturally without even really thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not something you really try.
Yeah.
It's the awareness. So in the body awareness method, the flow is awareness, allowing, and then action.
I like that.
And so just depending on where you are, the awareness is always the biggest shift.
Yes.
The allowing can take days, years, months, decades, sort of depending on where you're at with your allowing it, right?
Yes.
Receptivity. And then the
Yes.
action becomes the automatic.
Yeah.
Because you don't need boundaries when you're there. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that's very similar with the Qigong experience of the receptivity. Having the awareness increases the perception.
Yes.
And then you start to allow it more.
Yeah, and I like that. And I would say with the spiritual branch of Qigong, that's where it really helps address this topic very well, because there's having that awareness that there is more to life than just what's here. There's the various practices that can then start to, like I mentioned, raise your vibrational frequency, which then brings things to you. So then you start to recognize all these synchronicities that start to happen, and oh, this is interesting, and highly recommend journaling as part of the practice. And that just helps one acknowledge becoming more aware, and more things start to come and people just start to open up more. And it's this fascinating process of self-transformation that part of it is opening up and becoming accepting to receive.
Is that the biggest shift that people have when they stop trying to make everything happen? When they step into flow, is that the biggest shift they have?
I would say it would depend on the person. I think it could definitely be the biggest shift for some people, yes. I think maybe for some people it could be where it's just learning that they don't have to control and force. I think that could be really big for certain because certain people they're just so controlling. Like that's what they're all about. And then for them to break free of that, that's huge.
Don't you think a lot of that controlling is fear-based though? I mean, it's all fear-based.
Yes.
So when you can finally step out of fear, and I think there's only two emotions, fear and love. Everything is a trickle down from that. It allows them to step into love.
Yeah.
Because that's where trust and tolerance and receiving, that's where those things live, is in the love column.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And so to me, that's the biggest shift, is when someone lets their guard down, or like you said, that fear, that controlling, their heart opens on the other side.
Yes.
To so much more.
Yes.
See it in their personality and their softness. I think one of the biggest positives that people actually notice in their body is their nervous system changes.
Yeah. They just find themselves much more centered and balanced. That's what happened for me.
Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your switch.
So in 2014, I was in the midst of a rapid growth period in my company. It was the second year we were on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in the country. And, all kinds of success with bigger clients and bigger budgets and more employees and, looking at it, oh, yeah, how awesome. And it was. However, with all that came all kinds of additional stress and pressures and demands and obligations. And I just found that historically, I was able to function really well in the chaos, just staying calm, cool, and collected. But by a lack of self-care, which is a massive contributor to where I found myself just out of balance and off-centered, where I really wasn't myself anymore. So I was getting really irritated and frustrated quickly, triggered by events and people.
Reactive.
Very reactive, super reactive. Yeah. It was like there was a reactive scale. Yeah, it was like nuclear reactive. Like there were some of those moments that weren't pretty. I like that. Nuclear reactive. Yeah, I was
DEFCON 1. We hit DEFCON.
Yes, I did. I did. And that's when I was like, wow, I'm not myself anymore. And then, interestingly enough, right around that time, just through divine guidance, that's when a friend of mine that I was working on a side project with, which that side project was all very, very positive about self-empowerment and all of these things. And that's through that project is how Russ Anderson came into the picture. And then I was able to meet him and go down that journey of Qigong.
So you first experienced it as a client
Yes.
on the table at the nuclear reactive state and
Yes.
saw what that did for you and how you were able to change your perception, outlook, and how you performed in your own very successful business.
Yes, yes. And I highly attribute it to me being able to achieve those higher levels of success, which, 5 years on the Inc. 5000, 5 years in a row, and then being able to create a great positive organizational culture, getting best places to work at the same time 4 years in a row, and eventually being able to sell the company. Like tons of work and effort and all the things, but being able to just be much more centered and balanced to be able to navigate
You felt
all
more
that.
like you.
I felt
Did you
more.
notice that when there was a switch, or was it this real gradual?
I'd say it was gradual. So in that first session, it was really interesting because I was so intrigued. I had my first experience with Qigong through martial arts, so the martial Qigong, but I never met anyone that did the medical, so I was just so intrigued. And when I went the first time, it was just this amazing experience. And I left, and about, I'd say, within 10 minutes, all of a sudden I just started to feel this overwhelming sense of childlike joy.
Really?
Yeah, this joy that I haven't felt since I was a kid, like that type of joy. And I was like, wow, what's happening?
Your inner child was waking
Yeah,
up.
and it was like my heart was opening up.
Your heart was opening.
Yeah,
You stepped into love.
yes, and I was just so joyful. And I remember thinking, I was driving at the time. Like, wow, I haven't felt like this.
I need more of that.
Yeah, I haven't felt like this since I was a kid. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, he's such the real deal. I'm going back. So I went back about once a month for 6 months. And over that time, it was a gradual process. But after 6 months is when I found I feel much more like myself and much more centered and balanced.
And so you attribute that to being able to take your company almost to the next level. Right?
Oh, yeah. Not almost, but to the next level and the next level. Absolutely. Yes.
How does Qigong gradually create that safety within your body so that performance wasn't grinding anymore?
Yeah, well, when we're in this reactive mode, especially when we go nuclear reactive, we have so much stress and it's building up, and that stress is affecting all our bodies, and it takes a toll. It takes a toll mentally, emotionally, and then from a physical standpoint, it depletes us. One can cause a variety of different disease conditions depending upon the nature of the emotions, because they'll impact different parts of the body in our anatomy. But even just like from, say, our kidneys stores our vitality and our drive, our motivation, and stress highly depletes kidney energy. The kidney essence, the J, it depletes that, and it makes it tougher. So the more we're stressed, it's this negative feedback loop that really impacts us, and it's just this vicious downward spiral. Qigong helps you purge all the negative energy that's being compounded and stored, because we're like this walking computer where all these events, these interactions with people, places, things, and situations are being stored at a cellular level. So, for example, the emotions of irritation, frustration, anger, rage that are happening through various events and interactions is being stored in the liver. And going through Qigong, whether it's the table work or doing your own cultivation, doing Qigong exercises, or both, it purges out that negative energy.
I like that, purges.
Yeah, it purges it. I can think of it as these energetic particles that cluster together, they aggregate. And as you continue to, day after day, week after week, month after month, goes through these experiences, it's the emotions that charge these particles, that amplify the charge, and like attracts like, so they just kind of coalesce and compound and get more dense. And the exercises helps break that apart, because that'll start to create blockages in the system where the energy doesn't flow freely. When the energy, then it causes all these kinds of different conditions that
Well, it can be in any of the bodies.
Yes.
You'll actually get physical
Yes.
dis-ease from it, but your emotional gets backed up because you
Yes.
can't tolerate it anymore.
Yes.
And then your mental goes haywire because your thoughts are not clear anymore.
That's right.
Because they're being ruled by the negative emotion.
That's right.
And then you basically cut yourself off from spirit because spirit can't do anything for you when you're like,
That's right.
There's no opening, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's so interesting. Okay, so let me ask you this. Why is nervous system regulation so important?
Our society just keeps running faster and faster. The pace of change is increasing, and it's just creating so much more stress. I mean, we look at everyone's talking about AI, right? And job displacement. Look at all the stress that people are experiencing. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to get laid off?
It's anticipatory stress.
It's anticipatory, yes. People creating anxiety because they're living in the future, worrying about what's going to happen. And that creates that stress response of anxiety. And there's this aspect that you touch upon where humans were creative problem solvers. So, yeah, people get displaced, but then they figure out how to address the problem and they end up doing different things.
Most creativity comes when there is stress.
Yeah,
when there's a downturn.
Yes.
A problem that needs to be fixed,
yes.
Or, like you said, a displacement. Mm-hmm. Those people will rise.
Yes.
In a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe finding a different problem to solve or use their own gifts and talents.
Right.
You could look at it as the universe rerouting you also.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be something that, well, let's need to go a totally different path, or people could embrace the new tool and actually thrive from it. Just like the desktop computer with desktop publishing that changed how publishing happens, right? No one does it the old way anymore. But look how many jobs were created.
We're going to close here, but we're going to open here.
Yes.
Perspective is everything.
Yes, healthy perspective. The stress, though, a lot of people, they just, through the news, media, and all the chatter and talk and distractions out there, people get worked up and they're living in fear.
So what has Qigong taught you personally about trust?
To let go and trust is extremely important to form a deeper connection to the divine. Yeah, that's that element of faith, which I also talk about in my book and the model, is you have to be able to trust. You have to have that faith. There's a little mantra that I say to myself: amazingly, I let go and I trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, because letting go and trusting is hard. So it is amazing when you can let go and trust. So amazingly, I let go and I trust.
Do you walk around all day, or is it just something that?
Yeah, it's a little something
that hums in there all the time?
Yeah, it's a little something. Usually, it's like in the morning upon waking, and then I add that on to some others. I have this little 5-element formula from the bottle of my book that I've tied to affirmation, which I really haven't shared with anybody out there yet.
Oh, share it.
Okay, so
we're the first.
All right. So, for example, we're talking about Qigong and energy work. I'll say, I know with certainty that I am an extremely powerful and effective healer. As I walk this path, isn't it wonderful that I see evidence every day and in every way that I am getting better and better? Amazingly, I let go and I trust. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, so I know with certainty, that's important, right? That's the element of confidence, and that I am, you can just have X for whatever you're stating that you are. That's that element of expertise, whatever you are a master of, right? So I know with certainty that I am X. As I walk this path, so that's the aspect of discipline, because you're doing the work. And also that I am, usually with some adjectives, like powerful and effective healer, for example, like the powerful and effective is like the mastery, expertise part, but the actual like healer in this example would be the element of passion, the joy in doing that work. So I know with certainty that I am extremely powerful and effective healer as I walk this path. Isn't it wonderful that I see evidence every day in every way that I'm getting better and better? So that's where there's that expertise and the confidence coming back in. Amazingly, I let go of my trust is the faith element. So all 5 elements are incorporated into this mantra.
So what Craig is talking about, he wrote a book called Business Kung Fu.
Yes.
And I have it, but I didn't bring it here because we're talking more about Qigong. I will actually highlight it in the notes. It's an excellent book for any of those that want to see his journey and how he related it back to being a business person, as well as learning to calm his nervous system down and stay more centered at the same time. And combining those two elevated the business tenfold and his life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the first time I've shared that.
I feel so special.
Yeah, so,
It does. It has this 5-element wheel, and it is a great tool and asset. It's not something that's super heavy and long, but it goes through his perspective of how he related the principles of Qigong into successful business.
yeah, it's a quick read.
It is a quick read, but it's really good. I should have, it's just sitting over there. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. So let me ask you something else about Qigong. How has Qigong taught you to slow down?
It really teaches you to be still, to try to get to that, what's called the still point. And the only way you can do that is you got to slow everything down. And even if you're doing like a certain Qigong exercise where your body's moving, you're integrating the mind, body, and breath. That's what you do in Qigong, integrate the mind, body, and breath. Even when you're moving around, the more you slow down and relax and you get into a deep meditative state, you're just naturally slowing everything down. And then when you're just doing static meditations, you're slowing down and you're trying to get to an actual still point. So not only slowing down, but like stopping.
Stop it.
And it's that still point is when you can be completely centered. And that's when like everything opens up for you with intuition and creativity. That is how it's taught me to slow down.
Do you do that every day?
Yeah, I have my routine, like my morning practice, which I do most days, but sometimes there's certain things that I'm working on that are new. Like I'm still learning. There's like so many things.
It never ends.
It's a lifelong learning thing. So sometimes I'm working on a certain meditation or a certain exercise or form or something like that. So it depends. Yeah.
But you take part of every day and devote it to the learning, cultivating, practicing of.
Yeah. And some days I have to switch up my preferences in the morning, before all the busyness. But then sometimes things come up and I have to do it like in the evening or some point in the day. And sometimes I have like my normal pattern. I get it all in. Awesome. Other days, especially on days where I have a lot of client sessions coming in, like I think tomorrow I have 3 sessions coming in. So I'll probably abbreviate that morning.
Practicing Qigong all day. Because you have to be in that element. I find when I work, I actually have to be in that state of flow in order for my treatments to have the most effectiveness.
Yeah, that's right. So another way of putting it, I'm in the field.
Yes.
So like tomorrow I'll be in the field for like 6 hours.
So you're still cultivating all those things, even though it's within an interaction of another human.
Yes.
It's still the same energy field.
It is, because when you're doing the table work, it all comes together. Everything.
And you're facilitating all of that.
Yes.
So I would say that serves as non-practice for the day.
So that's why usually it's like, okay, I'm not going to do the morning practice, but I'll do a short meditation before the clients come in, and then I'm in the field. And then after that, I'm probably pretty good for the day.
It's Friday, you're good.
So it depends. I have my normal routine, but depending upon any given day, there's fluctuations.
Yeah, and I'm noticing now, because my treatments are more intense, more encompassing, if I treat too many clients or I'm in the field too long, it actually becomes very physically depleting for me. So I have to know where my container's at for being able to hold.
Do you practice any sort of energetic hygiene? I'm not sure if we've ever talked about that before.
No, we'll have to talk about that after. Now you have my curiosity. How does Qigong show up in the everyday practice for people? So people practice it, but how will it show up then in their everyday lives?
I think they'll be more calm, have better clarity of thinking. They'll be able to just mitigate their levels of stress and anxiety if they have that issue. They'll just find themselves more calm, centered, and able to function throughout the day for longer.
At a more like constant flow, that blips. What are some small practices that listeners can incorporate into a daily practice?
There's one very simple practice that takes just a couple minutes to do. It's an exercise called pulling down the heavens, and people could actually get it for free on my website. Yeah.
That'll also be in the show notes.
Yeah. So yeah, these look for free Qigong class, I think is the call out on CraigCooke.com. And pulling down the heavens, you can do it for 5, 10, 15 minutes if you want, but you can do it as little as just 3 reps, and each rep only takes, say, 10, 15 seconds. What it does, it helps to purge the 3 bodies, the spirit body, energy body, physical body. When I say it like that, the 3 bodies, that's from a Chinese medicine perspective, because there's like the 4 bodies that you address. In the Chinese culture, they group a lot of things in 3s, which is cool because it's easily remembered and manageable. But say the second Wei Qi field, which is a field on the outside of our body, that encompasses the mental and emotional field. Right. This exercise clears out the 3 bodies. It also helps to root it into the earth. It has this purging effect. And it also has a little bit of tonification. Tonification means like filling, strengthening. In addition to the breath and the movement, you utilize a visualization of light. And light fills the empty space that's created from the purging. And then the light fills that space, so it strengthens. And the combination of the sound and the light also has a regulating, balancing effect. And the particular sound that is used targets the heart center. So there's different sounds for the different organs.
And this is all the same exercise?
It's all the same exercise.
Ooh, I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's very simple to do, but it's extremely powerful, actually.
I like that. Okay, so that's on which website?
It's on CraigCooke.com.
And like I said, it'll be in the show notes. But I'm going to check it out because it sounds like you can hit it or you can sort of.
You can be in it for a while, but if you like just before going into a meeting that's going to be highly stressful, help ground you out and enter calmly.
So I like the filling it up with light because that gives you infinite source.
Yes. Just to explain in a little more detail, you're utilizing earth chi and heavenly chi. So
you're grounding from the ground up and then you're bringing it from in.
Yeah. So you're like in the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's cool.
That's cool. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. And then even if it's a tough meeting right after the meeting, you can do that, just 3 reps and just feel better.
That's amazing. That could be a really useful tool.
It's the first thing I teach, actually.
Is it? Usually those are the simple things that we try to make things too complicated for the sake of, well, that must be more.
We as humans tend to overcomplicate things. Just keep it simple. That's what my first instructor was saying. Just keep it simple. Just do this and do this. That's it.
And sometimes that would be a really great exercise. Just reset, walk away for a minute or a day, and then have it present itself differently to me. Because that's usually when my ahas or downloads, sometimes they're sleeping, but a lot of times it's because I've taken a step away. Something else comes out at you.
100%. There's many times in the days when I used to do programming, and I'd be stuck for like an hour, 2 hours trying to force it. And then I walk away, and then I come back to it like an hour or 2 later, and
it's right
boom.
There. It's right there.
It's right there.
And just think, I sat here for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so what are you learning right now, personally?
Well, the types of conditions that clients have been coming in, say this past year especially, have been much different than in the past. Most of the people that I've treated over the past 10 years is more of like mental, emotional stuff. And that's just what the divine brought to me because that's how I entered into it. And it was very natural and I can relate to them. They can relate to me. But now in the past year, there's a lot more different physical aspects of people with physical conditions coming in. So that's been a huge learning experience because applying what I've already learned through the doctorate program I was in and seeing it work is super cool. So that's learning. And also with some conditions that I didn't learn the protocol from that program, but through the books and with some of the teachers I'm still connected with from that program, talking to this one gentleman, his name is Dr. Diego Senegal, really skilled and knowledgeable. So, hey, this is the condition this person has. Here's the protocol. So, what else do I need to know? So, he fills in the gaps for me, and then being able to apply that. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, and seeing the outcome of it. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
Now, do you find that with more of the medical conditions that are coming in now, and up to a year ago, having most of it be mental, emotional, do you see the layering on top of that? Because you're still addressing,
Oh, yes.
it's like
Yes.
having this next layer.
Yes.
Well, because wasn't there an emotional environment that also helped that cyst grow?
Yes.
It's taking it from the two different ends.
Yeah.
And I find that in treatment too. People oftentimes come to me for the primary physical, and then all the other stuff comes up. Then, we're treating their whole body. They're not the same, but they dance with each other.
Yes, they do.
And it's so interesting. We come from totally different practitioner background, but it all lands in the same. So, Craig, what brings you joy these days?
Yeah, good question. The work that we're talking about is very enjoyable. I'm just very passionate about it. So there's the actual session work that like we've been discussing, and there's a lot of joy in that, and I moderate that, so I'm not like day after day, hour after hour, so it becomes a grind. I'm like throttling that.
Because it can really easily, all of a sudden, you're like, whoa, what happened to my week?
Yeah, so there's great joy in that. It's very fulfilling for me. And that's with the work on the table and the other half of the session with the intuitive work that I do also, because it goes hand in hand, like you've experienced. And then the teaching is a new element since doing this now for the past year and a half. That's really been joyful and fulfilling.
I love teaching.
It's just so much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, I just had for my first group of ongoing students, the program is mostly online, but the last class is in person all day. So we just had the last class last weekend, Saturday, and just to watch how everyone is evolving and how good they're getting and the experiences they're going through. And like I mentioned, certain things that they're stating that they're experiencing is just really fulfilling and really joyful for me. Family, of course, is always, when there's family time that's like doing something a little out of the ordinary. Yeah, there's always joy in that.
It's remembering to keep that connection.
Yeah.
It's a connection.
Yeah.
Connections live with your students. It's a connection with your family.
Yes.
Really what it's all about.
I
I mean,
think
in the end, right? It's the sharing.
Yeah, it's the sharing. I have my sister who moved away, I think she said 5 years now. And she was just in town last week. So my son and I went to dinner with her husband. Just that was just so much fun. Yeah, just those moments when you get to share.
It's the simple stuff. Like
It's
you
the
go back
simple
to.
stuff.
It's always
Yeah.
the simple stuff.
Yeah, it's the simple things.
Okay, if listeners remember one thing from today's conversation, what would you want them to be?
Ooh, wow. That's a good one. Practice Qigong.
There you go.
And make your life better. Just do it. Yeah.
Okay, so we already said, but go ahead and plug yourself. Where can people find you?
So my primary Qigong website is c2energymedicine.com. There's a bunch of information on there about my classes and the session work and so forth. Also, CraigCooke.com. I'm on LinkedIn too. If someone just searches for me, like on Google, I come up all over the place.
He's not that hard to find.
Yeah, I'm not hard to find.
That's good. Yeah. Craig, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Chrissie.
It was a joy. One of the things that stood out to me in today's conversation is the idea that not everything in life has to be forced. Many of us have spent years trying to think our way through every challenge, push our way towards every goal, or control every outcome. But what if there's another way? What if presence creates possibilities that striving never could? What if slowing down isn't falling behind? What if learning to receive is just as important as learning to achieve? As Craig shared today, practices like Qigong invite us back into relationship with ourselves, our breath, our bodies, our awareness, and subtle signals we can often miss when life becomes too loud. As we continue this season's conversation about safety, stillness, and trusting ourselves, I invite you to notice where you might be forcing when flow is available. Our shift is ended for today.